Mercedes' season couldn't have started off worse, as the first two races weren't impressive to say the least, and the third one in Australia was even more depressing for the squad. What on earth is going on at Mercedes, and what do the drivers have to say about this underwhelming start to the season? Lewis Hamilton retired from the Australian Grand Prix after experiencing an apparent engine problem on his Mercedes W15, and George Russell flew into the barriers in the 57th lap, causing a double DNF for the Brackley squad. This leaves them down in 4th in the Constructors' Championship with only 26 points. It started with Hamilton stopping on the back straight after only 16 laps at Albert Park, claiming an engine failure over team radio before parking to the side of the circuit. With Mercedes suffering with the W15 in the early parts of this season, Hamilton stated that the car's inconsistent performance really messes with the mind. He said, "I obviously don't feel great. We had one of the worst sessions I've probably had for a long time. FP1 generally felt quite good. The car in FP1, Run 1, actually felt the best it's ever felt, but it just got worse and worse. We made some big changes into FP2 and it was tough. After that session, I feel the least confident I've ever felt with this car. But there are positives from that, like that FP1 run that we did. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton would prefer to be competing for race victories or simply finishing races, but he is still feeling pretty good despite presenting a grim picture of Mercedes' chances for the rest of the season. But the retirement in Australia left him with 8 points after 3 races, his worst start to a season ever. It's worse than his first 2 seasons in the ground effect aerodynamic era when he scored 28 and 38 points, and it's even lower than his 14 points in 2009. I mean, this is the worst start to the season I've ever had, he said. Asked if it has been even worse than the last 2, he replied, "Oh yeah, for sure, and it's worse than 2009, I think." Surprisingly, he added, "I feel pretty good. I'm trying to keep things in perspective, you know, this could be so much worse. I'm really grateful. I've really enjoyed my time here in Australia. I'm still enjoying working with a team. Of course, I'd love to be fighting for wins and actually finishing races. It's never a great feeling when you come all this way, and you don't see even half of the race. But what I know is that we will bounce back, we will eventually get there. We just have to continue to chip away." The pretty good feeling is probably related to the fact that Hamilton knows that at the end of the year he can finally say goodbye to the Mercedes ground effects cars as he's making his big move over to Ferrari. However, Hamilton admits Mercedes' performance right now is tough to swallow. The team went into pre-season testing expecting to be in contention for podium finishes, but their best performance so far has been a 5th place finish. "I think it's tough on the spirit," he went on to say. "I think for everyone in the team, when so much work is going on throughout the winter for everybody, you come in excited, motivated and driven, and then you're with the mindset that you're going to be fighting for wins. And then obviously that's not the case, and then you're like, okay, maybe 2nd, 3rd. No, it's not the case, and it cascades a bit further down, and you just go through the motions. It's challenging. But I continue to be inspired by the people I've worked with. They continue to put in the effort and show up, and that's the most important thing," he added. "I think it's easy to get caught up in the moment and be focused on this one thing, but the bigger picture is definitely the focus of the moment, and also just realizing that you can't control everything. Like, you get frustrated because you don't have control. You can just let go and just be in the moment, and that's really, it's not great. I'm not happy, but I'm gonna have a great day tomorrow." However, asked if there was anything in the pipeline that would make a difference, he replied, "I don't know." Hamilton's DNF was a bad feeling for Mercedes, but they still had one car fighting for points in the best of the rest pack of the Melbourne race. At least that was until Russell suddenly was found upside down in the middle of the track. This happened as Russell and Alonso were racing for 6th position in the final stages of the Albert Park race, with Russell closing up on Alonso after pitting later and benefiting from fresher tyres. Russell seemed to gain on the Aston Martin ahead of him as he approached turn 6, destabilising his Mercedes and sending him over the gravel and into a hard collision with the wall. Russell declined to accuse Alonso of wrongdoing in an interview with Sky Sports F1, but described the situation as bizarre. "My take is that I have gone off, and that is on me, but I was half a second behind Fernando 100 metres before the corner, and then suddenly he came towards me extremely quick and I was right in his gearbox," he added. "I don't know if he has got a problem or not. We are off to see the stewards, so that is a bit bizarre in a circumstance like this. I've got nothing more to say right now. I need to see everything. I am disappointed to end the race like that. When questioned explicitly if he believed Alonso brake tested him, Russell responded, "It is clear that he braked 100 mph before the corner and then went back on the throttle and took the corner normally. We've already seen the data of that, so I am not going to accuse him of anything until we've seen further. But I was right behind him for many laps, and I was half a second behind him approaching the corner, and then suddenly he slowed up dramatically and got back on the power. I wasn't expecting it, it caught me by surprise. That part is on me, but it is interesting that we've been called to the stewards, so I am intrigued to see what they have to say." Alonso also replied to the event before the FIA stewards meeting, explaining that he was dealing with a battery problem. "I was focusing in front of me and not behind. I had some issues for the last 15 laps or something on the battery, on the deployment," Alonso said. "I was struggling a little bit at the end of the race, but I cannot focus on the cars behind. But he's okay, apparently. I saw the car and I was very worried. I knew that he was coming and he was on the DRS distance for already 5 or 6 laps. So yeah, it was very close. I was just doing qualifying laps and trying to maximize the pace. It was not an easy race, not an easy weekend in general in terms of pace. Today we got lucky with the strategy, and when Lewis was off and that virtual safety car, but we cannot hide that the pace was difficult the whole weekend." Although George Russell was hesitant to point the finger, the stewards were clear after the race and handed Fernando Alonso a penalty after being found guilty of potentially dangerous driving that resulted in George Russell's late race accident at the Australian Grand Prix. A thorough stewards report into the incident read, "Car 63 crashed at the exit to turn 6 on lap 57. The stewards have extensively reviewed the situation that occurred prior to the crash. Telemetry shows that Alonso lifted slightly more than 100 meters earlier than he ever had going into that corner during the race. He also braked very slightly, at a point that he did not usually brake, although the amount of brake was so slight that it was not the main reason for his car slowing, and he downshifted at a point he never usually downshifted. He then upshifted again and accelerated to the corner before lifting again to make the corner. Alonso explained that while his plan was to slow earlier, he got it slightly wrong and had to take extra steps to get back up to speed. Nonetheless, this maneuver created a considerable and unusual closing speed between the cars. In considering the matter, the stewards focused solely on the wording of the regulation, which states, "At no time may a car be driven unnecessarily slowly, erratically, or in a manner which could be deemed potentially dangerous to other drivers or any other person," stated in Article 33.4. This potentially dangerous driving resulted in a 20-second penalty, moving Alonso down from 6th to 8th. What's your take on the incident? And maybe more important, what's your opinion on Mercedes' start to the 2024 season and their W15, the car that was supposed to challenge the front of the grid? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below.